Hello. It is so wonderful to have you here. Tonight we will continue the story of Merrick in the Lighthouse Diaries series. If you haven't heard the first episode, please go to our channel to take it from the start. I hope you enjoy this episode. The sea changed color overnight. Yesterday it was pewter. This morning it's the blue of a bruise that's nearly healed. I stood at the window with my coffee and watched the line where water met sky blur and then steady again, as if the world were deciding whether to wake up. The bottle from yesterday sits on the desk, empty now, glass catching light in its curves like it's still thinking about what it once held. The latter, Elias, the tide keeps what it likes, is pressed between pages of my journal so it won't curl. I haven't told anyone about it yet. That's not secrecy so much as hesitation. Greyhaven has a way of making you want to understand a thing before you name it out loud. I took the path down to the village after breakfast. The air smelled of tar and salt and frying bread. Fishermen were already at the pier, sorting through nets that glistened like spider silk. Mara was there, crouched by a crate of fuel cans, sleeves rolled up. She looked up as I came down the ramp. "Keeper Merrick," she called, half teasing. "Still alive up there?" "More or less," I said. "Nothing's fallen apart yet." She handed a rag to a boy working beside her and straightened. "Give it a week. The sea likes to test new arrivals." I mentioned finding drift glass on the cove, testing her reaction. She nodded like that was ordinary. When I said I'd found a bottle and that it held a note, her face tightened by degrees. "What sort of note?" "Short, addressed to someone named Elias. Sounded personal." She wiped her hands and leaned on the rail. "Elias Havergreen, the last proper keeper before the war, disappeared one night during a gale. They say he went out to check the storm lamps and never came back." "Did they find him?" "No," she said. "Nobody. Just his coat tangled in the rocks. My grandfather told me the lamp never went out that night. Make of that what you will." She gave me a look somewhere between warning and curiosity. "You planning to keep the bottle?" "For now." "Good. Best to let old things settle on their own terms." Then she grinned, the tension gone as quickly as it came. "You want bread? Best baked this morning. Still warm if you hurry." Bess's Bakery is the kind of place that smells like it remembers every loaf it ever baked. The air was sweet with yeast and honey. She slid a tin from the oven and said without turning, "Heard you found a message in a bottle. Mara doesn't keep gossip to herself long." "I suppose that's how the sea carries news around here," I said. She chuckled. "Sea, wind, and women with time to talk. Same thing, really." Bess wrapped a loaf in brown paper and handed it to me. "You keep that letter safe. Greyhaven's full of stories, and most start with something washing up that shouldn't." The climb home felt shorter. Familiar paths have that trick. I could hear the lighthouse humming before I saw it. The kind of low vibration you feel more than hear, like a cat purring through stone. Inside, The air had shifted again. It always does after a day in the village. It greets you like a place adjusting to your absence. I set the bread on the counter, made tea, and opened the journal to where the letter rested. Salt had crisped the edges overnight. I traced the handwriting with one finger. Straightforward penmanship, confident but unhurried. I wondered if Elias had someone who waited for him to write back. Near dusk, the tide pulled lower than usual, uncovering rocks I hadn't seen before. Black ridges glistening with weed. I went down to the cove to walk off restlessness. The air was thick with mist and the metallic scent of shells breaking underfoot. Clearer glass this time, smoother. The cork had swollen tight again. I hesitated, looking toward the horizon where the sun had become a dull coin. 2 bottles in 2 days felt like an invitation disguised as coincidence. I carried it up carefully, the glass slick with salt. When I set it on the desk beside the first one, the difference between them was obvious. The first green and old, this one nearly new. Whoever sent them wasn't digging relics from the past. They were writing now. I eased the cork free. Inside lay another letter. Same pen, same steady hand. Elias, you left the lantern full last night. I saw it all the way from the south cliffs. You remember more than you think. The tide was kind. The fish were close to shore. I kept a piece of driftwood for you, smooth as glass. If the weather holds, I'll come by the cove when the moon is small. M. The signature was a single initial, inked darker, as if pressed with more feeling than sense. I sat a long time staring at the 2 letters. There are simple explanations, of course. A prank, a lover's art project, a coincidence shaped by current and wind. But the logical mind is easily outnumbered at sea. I opened the journal. Second letter arrived, same hand. Mentions the lantern. Says it was left full last night. But I didn't dim it. I left it at full beam. I paused and added, either someone was watching or someone remembers differently. The kettle whistled. I let it. The sound filled the room like company. Near midnight, the wind shifted hard from the north. The sky closed itself and began to mutter. I climbed to the lantern room to check the seals. The horizon vanished. The world ended 10 yards from the glass. Between flashes of lightning, the beam carved tunnels through the rain. In one brief white frame, I thought I saw a figure on the south path. Too still to be wind blown, too near the cliff edge to be careless. The next flash showed only mist. When the storm eased, I went down to the door. The air had that hollow silence storms leave behind. I stepped out, the ground slick underfoot. By the steps lay a strip of wood, pale and smooth, shaped almost like a piece of bone. Sea-polished. Driftwood. I brought it inside, set it on the desk beside the bottles. It was warm to the touch, though the room was cold. The storm cleared with theatrical satisfaction. Blue sky, gulls noisy with gossip. The sea looked innocent again. I carried the driftwood outside to examine it in sunlight. Lines had been carved into it, faint, deliberate, forming what looked like a map of currents, spiraling inward toward a single point marked with a small cross. The mark sat exactly where the lighthouse would be if you laid the coastline against it. Mara arrived mid-morning with a crate of supplies and that raised eyebrow she keeps for things she hasn't decided how to believe. 2 bottles now, she said when she saw them. Yes. She turned one over, studying the glass. This one's new stock. I've hauled crates like it. Came through the harbour last month. So whoever's sending them isn't a ghost from the 50s. No, there's someone with a good arm and a reason to play games. She looked out toward the cove. You planning to answer? I don't know what I'd say. She smiled. That's never stopped anyone from writing before. Before she left, she touched the driftwood on the desk. Map, she said simply. Currents run strange around Greyhaven. They say there's a hollow under the cliffs, a place the tide breathes through. A cave? Maybe, or a throat. The words stayed with me after she was gone. A throat the sea breathes through. The air tonight is still, the kind of stillness that makes you cautious. I set the 2 bottles side by side on the windowsill. They catch the lamplight and throw it back like small beacons. I wrote a letter not because I expected to be found, but because silence felt heavier than words. To whoever writes from the sea, I am not Elias. My name is Noah Merrick. I keep the light now. I found your letters and your driftwood. If you mean to speak, I'm listening. If this is a memory still working itself out, I'll keep it safe until you're done. N.M. I sealed it with wax from a candle stub and walked down to the cove. The moon was small indeed, a thin spill of silver behind cloud. I waded knee-deep, the cold biting like truth, and set the bottle loose. The tide accepted it without fuss. When I turned back, the light from the tower swept across me, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw another light further out, blinking once in reply. Maybe it was a boy, maybe it wasn't. Back inside, I dried my hands and sat to write. Send first reply. Unsure what game I'm playing or with whom. Wind rising from the east. The sea smells different tonight, sweeter somehow. The driftwood map is gone from the desk. No sign of it anywhere. I didn't hear it fall. I waited before adding the last line because I didn't feel like something you write lightly. The light from the tower feels brighter when I'm not in the room. That's where I'll leave it for now. Tomorrow I'll check the cove again. The sea keeps what it likes, Mara said. Maybe sometimes it gives something back. To be continued. Join me next week here at the Midnight Vale to hear the next episode of Noah Merrick's story. Good night and welcome to the Vale.